Well, actually, the bill has not been filed yet, but there is a bill that has been drafted, and the intention behind it is to bring us up to at least a parity with the state of Missouri, who passed their bill last year and it went into effect in January. It creates a situation of disparity between the two states in that Kansas is still on a test track with only state employees being able to avail themselves of that test. Missouri allows it for everyone as a coverage with a greater capacity for the coverage, which in fact is going to cause some people to take a look at moving across the state line to take advantage of that. So we're hopeful that this new bill will be acceptable to the Kansas legislature, and we can move it forward and at least have that equity and parity for our Kansas citizens. Well, what's happened is Kansas has this statutory requirement for any mandated insurance that there be a trial test period. Other states have already shown by their evidence that they have the sufficient data to prove that the ABA therapy and the other aspects of the bill are in fact supported by evidence. Kansas does not need to have a period of time to study their own small sampling, which is only 120 children at this point that we know about within the state system, to have evidence that the system works. They've got 24 other states that have shown that it does already. So I think we need to move forward, because if we don't, any of those children that are not availing the ABA therapy and the other therapies under the program will be lost if they have to wait until 2014 before they actually can begin getting services. And by lost, I mean if they don't have the therapy within a window of time. It's been shown time and time again that after a certain time they've already established a pattern that will stay with them the rest of their lives if they don't have the therapy.
The question that I've been asked is, especially for folks who do not have a child with autism or do not have a family member of a child with autism, why should we support this legislation, this insurance reform legislation? I travel around the country and work with my wife in getting legislation passed, and the reason that we do, in addition to it's the right thing to do, is that it's best for all of us. The studies have shown that with effective treatment, with early treatment, with intensive treatment, that a large percentage of children can be mainstreamed into regular education. Another large percentage after that can do enormously well. This cuts down the cost for everybody. It cuts down the cost for special education. It cuts down the costs for lost productivity, for other services that these children will need as they grow into adults, because the problem will not go away. And the incident rates are now up to about 1 in 160, and actually in many cases there are studies showing that they're actually higher than that. So it's an urgent matter to address this now by getting the treatment that these kids need so that they can lead productive lives and then are not going to be a drain on society. And are not going to have all of the difficulties that they might otherwise have. So it's definitely in our own self-interest to get the medical treatment to these kids that they need, that we know is effective. The outcome for them has been tremendous. In fact, a state, I won't name names of states or legislators, but in a state that's currently considering this legislation, a principal legislator in that state called up a legislator in the state where it had passed and said, tell me about this. What's the cost been? Has it been something that's worthwhile? And the legislator from the state that had passed responded and said, the costs are overall incredibly small given the total premiums, and it's the best thing we have ever done. And I am absolutely thrilled that we did it. And so I think that's what we're seeing across the board. As again I mentioned before about the cost savings, studies have shown that over the lifetime of a child, as much as $3.8 million can be saved if this treatment is administered and available.
Prior to the implementation of this legislation, Kansas families had relatively nowhere to turn to be able to get services for their children. I happen to be the mother of 3 boys, and it's when you're approached by a parent that has a child that has a debilitating illness, and they are told by their insurance company that they don't cover treatment, the emotional cost to families is extraordinary. The financial burden then to families becomes insurmountable. The thought of paying $40,000 to $70,000 a year for treatment for a child, families were taking out second mortgages. They were going bankrupt. When you talk about paying it forward, they were spending their children's, what was supposed to be their college fund. They were having grandparents mortgage their houses to be able to get providers to come in to implement an evidence-based approach. It was incredible to me that you could have maintain insurance and think that it would provide you the safety net and the coverage that you need when you have a child that presents with an illness. And then to go to your insurance, to go get a diagnosis, and then say, here's the intervention that's best practice, and have your insurance company deny that was heartbreaking at best and devastating at worst. The positive impact of what we're doing now in the state of Kansas is beyond words. What we know about the effects of evidence-based practice is that a full 47% of those that receive 25 to 40 hours a week of intensive early quality intervention can go on to be virtually indistinguishable from their same age peers, which means that you can be sitting next to them on an airplane and not know that that they have an autism spectrum diagnosis. It also means that they can be in a gen ed classroom, and they can be playing basketball, and they can be going swimming, and they can go on to graduate from high school, and they can go on to get a job and become a productive member of society. And it means that another 30% of those might continue to need a little bit of support, but the beneficial impact overall is phenomenal. What it means to us in the state of Kansas is if you think about the financial burden that it takes to educate children with an autism spectrum disorder, and if you think about the fact that without intensive early intervention, the majority of these kids will go on to require some kind of institutional care, the cost savings to society is phenomenal. Notwithstanding the beneficial impact that these individuals that have received intensive early intervention have by being able to contribute to society by going on and being able to be gainfully employed and become productive members of society. So it's twofold. It's a cost saving in terms of the amount of services that they're going to require in the educational system and post-education in terms of institutional care, and it's also, we reap the benefits by being able to have tax-paying citizens in the state of Kansas.